All right. Good morning, everybody. As you know, your next project is going to be to create a drawing of a railroad lantern using the grid method. Today we're going to set up your paper with its grid so that you can begin your project. So when we look at this, you can see how many details and beautiful shading it has in it, and the grid is a system of using small boxes in order to make an accurate drawing. So you see that these are the same drawing, but on this one we've added in the grid lines so that you can tell where to put everything. So in order to use the grid, you have to create a paper. Your drawing paper has to have the same grid on it with the same size boxes so that you can reproduce what you see. So if you look, it fits just like this. And if I were to pull it down a little bit, we'd be able to look, and whatever you see in this box, you're just going to draw in that box right there. Okay, and the same thing all the way down in order to create a really accurate outline of this project. When you've finished your outline, you will then erase the grid lines. That's why we draw the grid so light, right? Because you have to erase it after you've drawn the outline. And then you will fill in all of the value and details, like this student did. This is a beautiful student example, and she created the grid so that her proportions would be accurate, those size relationships, the size of the glass to the size of the handles would be very similar to the drawing. When we look at it compared to the final example, it is not perfect, but it is a really nice drawing to be proud of, and that's what I hope for all of you. So if you can follow along with me, do this with me while I'm drawing, and follow the steps very carefully. Make sure you're asking questions. If you have questions in the middle, you stop and you ask questions so that you can get it to look right. All right, and it's really important to get this first step set up beautifully so that we can move on and have a really nice drawing. So in order to make your grid, you are going to need a 9x12 drawing paper. Remember, this is the thicker paper. It's really nice and smooth. You're going to need to use your ruler. We're using the inch side, which is the bigger side. You will use your 2H pencil, sharp and pointy, and you're going to need to use your eraser, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. When I do a drawing like this, I like to sharpen my pencil right before I start. This helps because if your pencil is dull, then it doesn't always go right to the measurements. It'll go like a little bit next to it because it's too fat. So we have to make sure when we're using our ruler that we're getting right to those lines that are by our inch markings, because it matters a lot when you're doing a grid drawing, right? So our paper is not exactly the same size as the area that we're going to be drawing. So we're going to make a couple of adjustments as we're drawing in order to make a grid that we can use. So the first adjustment we're going to make is just remembering that our grid is 8 inches and our paper is 9 inches. So we're going to have a whole inch along the side that we don't use. All right, so our first step is to draw these little tick marks. Now, a tick mark is a tiny line like this, okay? And when we're doing it from a ruler, the tick mark should come out of the ruler or above the ruler just like that. And that will make a nice accurate marking. So if this is the number you're using, that's the measurement right here, and you'll make a little line that comes out just like this. You need to make your tick marks very lightly on your paper as you'll erase them also. So let's go ahead and line up the ruler with the top of the paper just like this. That's just perfect, and as you can see, it goes all the way to 9, but we're only going to use to 8. So I will start by making even a little taller. All right, yeah, it's nice. A little line up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. After you do that, then we're going to move the ruler down to the bottom, just like this, and perhaps I'm going to scoot things around a little bit so that you can see. How's that? All right, cool. And then down underneath, I'm making sure that my 0 is lined up with the end of the paper. My ruler is just under my paper, and I'm going to make a tick mark at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now that's what we're doing for, I went the wrong way. Silly Miss Dorsey. Okay, so that's what we're doing for the top and the bottom. Now, we need to do the sides, and the sides are a little bit different as well because the paper, the image is 10 inches tall and our paper is 12 inches tall. So we're not going to make them all the way down the paper, we're only going to make them to 10 inches so that we can have the appropriate markings. Okay, so again, because it's too long, we need to make some adjustments, and it'll be easy, don't worry about it. And I'm start making my marks just like the top and the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you stop. Stop at 10. Okay? We don't need any longer than 10, it'll just confuse us, so we don't want to put it on there. I'm going to move my ruler over. I'm going to move my ruler over so that it's lined up with this last one over here, because remember, we're not using this part, so I don't want to make my tick marks over here. So I'm going to start making my marks at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 is the last mark that we'll make. After you do that, then it's time to start making the grid on the inside of the paper. Now, when you're drawing your grid lines, you need to draw very, very lightly. So if I set this aside and I show you on my little example paper, I'm going to draw 2 lines. And it wouldn't hurt me to practice this. One, I'm barely touching. The other one, I'm touching normally. That one, I pushed a little bit harder. One, you can totally see the difference between the lines. This is the one we want. We want the one that you can barely, if at all, see. I can see it in person, but it's hard to see over the video. When you go to erase these lines, the top one disappears completely. The one with medium to light pressure mostly disappears, and this one stays 100%. So be very careful with the way that you're making your lines on your grid so that you can erase it later so that your drawing will be as beautiful as it can be. So I'm going to start here with making, let's start this side. I'm going to make my one long line and then I'm going to switch and do the little line so that I know where my little lines will end. So here's my first vertical line here at the edge. Now remember that's it's starting here. This is do not use. So please write this over to the side. It needs to say do not use so that you remember not to draw. Do not draw over there. No, no, no. Now we're going to go ahead and do the side lines, the horizontal lines, and I'm going to start here with the 10 line. I'm going to start here with the 10 line because, darlings, if I start with the top and go down, then I forget to stop at the 10 line. So I'm going to start from over here and draw a line over to the side, and then I will do the same thing through here. Very, very, very lightly, pushing so lightly. Going up here, making it extra light and beautiful. Just barely touching. Like if somebody were to come by and pick up the pencil and try to steal it out of my hand, they would be able to steal it out of my hand because I'm only holding on to it just a tiny little bit to make the lightest lines possible. So all the way up to the top. So when I get done with this, if I've done it correctly, I should have 10 little spaces. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then this down here, do not use. This is a good place to put your mystery item, and also let's go ahead and write our names on our paper down here. Okay, so get your name written on your paper right over there. Now, Next, we're going to go ahead and draw the rest of our vertical lines. So with our vertical lines, we're going to stop drawing when you get to this line. But my tick marks are down here along the bottom. So you have to make sure when you're lining up your ruler that you line up your ruler at the top and at the bottom, right, just like this. So when you draw, right, it's lined up and it's straight and you're making perfect squares. So I'm going to draw like that and then stop when I get there. Go over to the next one. Line it up. Take a minute, make sure it's perfect so you don't have to draw it twice. And make a line. Do it again. Line it up. Just like this. And then I will go over